time to get the fretboard mounted. Alright, I cheated you again. I took a little piece of maple veneer and drew our fretboard over it, slightly oversized. I went ahead and cut it, toothpicks in place, got it on there just to see how it would look, and while I had it there, I went ahead and chopped the veneer flush with the ends of the board. So that's ready to go. I was trying to think of something a little more elaborate and goofy to do for binding, but I think what we're gonna do is like we usually do, and you know, don't go all the way through the ziricote, so we leave a nice thin line, and then just do a maple binding, I think. So red heart, maple stripe, ziricote stripe, maple binding, I think. The alternative really would be red heart, and I don't know, red heart binding on a red heart neck just doesn't seem right to me. But I do have some really nice curly stuff that would be perfect for that binding, so I can't help but think that's what we're doing. So we won't need to do veneers, you know, between the binding and the board, as cool as that would be. And since we put binding, I mean, we put veneer everywhere else in this project, it seems like it should, that's the perfect opportunity to go crazy with binding veneers, but we don't need to. Color scheme kind of dictates otherwise. So, let's see, yesterday I double checked the flatness of the board, well, our platform, and it is rock solid. We need to check that again. But the only thing, I mean, it's really about time to mount the board. I just wanted to do a couple things first. I do want to chop the end of this off, which won't take long, and we can round our corners as well. But also, before we get too crazy, I do want to see what it's going to take to get this, get our head plate taken care of. It'll be easier to deal with this before the board is on. So, and I think if we can find something that will work, something that's the same size as the guide holes that we drilled for tuner locations, we could use those for locating pins, and even get this thing flushed and ready to just mount when the time comes. That would be cool. I don't know that I have anything that would fit that though. So anyway, that's my plan at the moment. We're going to play with the head plate for a little bit, see how that all works out, and then hopefully get the fretboard mounted PDQ. That's pretty damn quick for non-Texans. Alright, this guy was already drawn from the head itself, so we're just going to cut close to the line so we can see what we're dealing with, specifically on the angle of the end of the fretboard, and then see about getting it temporarily mounted, drill our holes, all that kind of stuff. Alright, I intentionally cut really close to the line here. I had more faith in my line than I should have, probably. I didn't think about how much that shit was going to tear out. And we actually need that line to be slightly less steep. That's about how much we're off. Once we get the angle right, then it will need a it will need to be beveled. to match the headstock angle. At least as thin as that is, it will be less of a battle trying to file the bevel on. Safety file to the rescue. Alright, not only do I like the angle, I like where the angle is. I like exactly where things are right this second. So I'm going to go ahead and drill some holes. Now, I don't have any dowels that are 3/32. I wish I hadn't just chosen that drill bit arbitrarily at the time. But I live in there. However, I do have two little screwdrivers that happen to be that size, so they will work pretty convincingly, I guess, for registration pins. Yeah, so how's that for ghetto-tastic? One of the things we're gonna have to figure out with this is how we are doing truss access and logo. And truss access needs to not interfere with logo. You know what? Okay, while we're able to, I'm going to temporarily stick this in place and we will flush trim it. We'll have that done so we can go ahead and get the fretboard mounted. Okay, now it's basically fitted. So we can figure out what we're going to do for access. Yeah. There are a few things we need to do before we can mount the fretboard, and some of them I wasn't thinking of at the time. We need to get our the head plate worked out, specifically, you know, flush trimmed if we were going to, which we did, and the angle on the where it butts up to the nut, which we did. All of that should be good, but we also need to do the butt binding on the board and cut the butt off of this and get it rounded so that the fretboard sits just barely over. But then the next steps, I think we're going to go ahead and chop this off, and then we need to just line this up on something so we can do our binding channel on it real quick, and then we can stick this in place and have it done and ready to roll. Alright, this line was drawn from the end of the fretboard where it currently is. We're going to cut just behind it. Alright, if you watch The Fire Dancer, you know, when it comes time to do the pocket, my flush trim router bit is a 1/2 inch diameter. So I've drilled a 1/2-inch hole that I can line up on the edges and find the radius that needs to be cleaned up to. It's not a whole lot of material, but all this stuff does need to come off, so that's nice and rounded when the time comes. Thanks for joining me. If you like what we're doing, if you're digging it, like and subscribe. Catch you next time. Like, subscribe.